I'd hope to show you some live coaching, but all right, listen, I love you, but you gotta drive. Okay, that's fine. Woke up 4 hours of panic. I thought I missed this. Let's move on to Stasis theory. So, see what I mean? Verbal fillers, y'all. Let's move on to Stasis theory. Stasis theory is your next mini speech. It's also going to be part 2 of your rebuttal speech. And I'm only going to teach you 2 pieces of argumentation this semester. One is the thing we already learned, which is finding the warrant and turning the tables. And the next one is Stasis theory. And that's pretty much all you need to know. If you can do those 2 things, you can undermine an argument by about anyone. Stasis theory says that basically every argument has 4 claims. Here are the claims. 1 is policy. We already know that one because that's the one that we've been working on. That's the action claim. Policy. 2 are claims of fact, also sometimes called claims of conjecture. And these are very easy to identify. They are X causes Y. Something is true. They're claims of fact. So they are arguments people are making that something is or is not true, is or is not happening, has or has not happened, will or will not cause something, something created something else. And there's a variety of these. Who shot JFK is a question of fact. Why? Because somewhere someone knows the answer. It's just we don't know the answer. Whether or not driving cars causes climate change is a question of fact because somewhere someone can possibly prove the answer. It's just people still keep it. Right now, most people don't consider that a claim of fact, but since there are still climate change deniers, it is still argued. So for most people, that is a fact, right? Fossil fuels create climate change. But since we have to approach it as there are really no facts, there's just claims of fact. In this particular case, that would be a claim of fact. Whether or not coronavirus is going to last until September is a question of fact, whether or not something will happen. So that's your claim of fact. Remember, there's a difference between facts and claims of fact. I am 37 years old is a fact. Nobody's going to debate that. It's just a fact. It's not a claim of fact, it's just a fact. I am old is a claim of something else. So don't confuse facts with claims of facts. Now we have our third one, which is definition. So these are whether something means something, what category it belongs to, how do you define it, how do you classify it. So if I say I am old, that is a claim of definition. If a 60-year-old looks at me and says, no, you're young, that's another claim of definition. So I am 37 is a fact. A claim of fact would be I'm going to live to be 60. That'd be a claim of fact, right? I'm claiming something is true. I'm old would be a claim of definition because I'm defining or classifying or categorizing something in some way. Cheerleading as a sport is a claim of definition. NCAA athletes should be paid is a claim of policy because it's an action, but it's backed up by another claim. NCAA athletes are professional athletes. That's a definitional claim. Policy, fact, definition. Okay, somebody, we went over policy on Monday. I'm not going to go over that one again. Write me claims of fact in the comments. Write down a claim of fact. True or not, opponent or not, I don't care. I just want you to make sure you get what a claim of fact is. Everyone write a claim of fact for me in the comments. Remember, this is something will happen. Something causes something. Something will not happen. Something does not cause something. Something is true. Something is not true. They're claims about reality, about what is truth, what is going to happen, predictions, causes. So write me a couple in the comments. I will wait. The sun is out today. Jack, that is just a fact. I don't think anyone's going to argue with you on that one. It's got to be, for it to be a claim of fact, it needs to be arguable. Nice, but I appreciate the shot. Try to give me something that's arguable. Remember, a claim of blah. So we're claiming something is true. Playing NCAA athletes destroys competition. Drew, I'll give you that one as a claim of fact, but since competition is kind of vague, if you were to say playing NCAA destroys athletes' bodies, I think that would be a good claim of fact because that's very concrete. Destroys competition, I'm actually going to teach you as the fourth kind of claim, which we haven't talked about. So we'll circle back to that one. Oh, thanks, Becca. Also, I believe all people are visual learners. So we should be doing everything as visual learning, by the way. There are other kinds of learners too. So whatever, I try to teach to all learning styles because I actually, the research on learning styles is pretty bad. Most people have relatively debunked it. Most all people need all of the learning styles appealed to. So if I'm ever not appealing to visual learning, let me know. Fact of claim to that, it's hot out today. Morgan, it's hot out today would be a definition because you're basically debating what counts as hot. Right? So if I say it's 55 degrees outside right now, that's just a fact. Right? So we're not debating that. We can just look at a thermometer. And of course, we're in Rochester, New York, it's 55 degrees today. We look at a thermometer, it's true or it's not true. So we don't need to argue about that. If you want to say 55 degrees is hot, that would be a claim of definition. You're claiming you're using a word or you're naming. Naming is a form of definition. Nice try though. I will have tacos for dinner tonight. Yeah, that's a claim of fact. You're claiming something is going to happen. I don't think anyone would argue it. The problem with a lot of these is why would anyone argue these with you? So you probably maybe need to pick up things that have a little bit of a higher stakes, but yeah, you're claiming something's going to happen in the future. I think that's fair. There will be more people, oh, here we go. Holly's got a good one. There will be more people who recover from the coronavirus than there are deaths from it. And I don't know enough about this to know if anyone would argue it, but it sounds like a claim of fact to me because you're claiming something will or will not happen in the future. Now, if there are people who would go, no, that's not true, more people are going to die than are going to recover, then we would have a debate. If the whole scientific community agrees with you and no one's debating, then this would be more of an actual fact. But again, there's a gray area between real facts that are just facts and then claims of fact. There's kind of always a middle ground. Like climate change is a really good middle ground. Almost everyone agrees climate change is real. Almost everyone agrees the Holocaust happened. Some people don't, but I mean, they are a very minor part of the conversation. So that's, Holly, I don't know if you fall into that little gray area in the middle or the actual claim of fact, but I think that's pretty close. Drew said paying. Yeah, that's fine. Paying NCAA athletes destroys competition. The problem is competition isn't anything it's ephemeral. It's, as opposed to something like playing NCAA, paying NCAA athletes would be worse on their bodies. That would be an actual claim of fact. Paying NCAA, oh, I see what you're saying. Paying NCAA athletes destroys competition. Competition is a very vague concept. So you can't really call that a claim of fact because we have what's competition, how do you know it's destroyed? There's too much to argue there. I think you have, but look at Holly's, the dress that was white or blue. Yeah, Nicolette, the white or blue dress is a great claim of fact. Half the world argued the dress was white, half the world argued the dress was blue. And they were actually both right because it had to do something with like your eye cone. So that's a really good example. We live in a post-racial America. I'll give you that one. Yeah, sure. I would call that a claim of definition though. Is that what you meant? Claim of definition? Because I think I asked for claims of fact. We live in a post-racial America. Again, that's like the competition. That's more of a definitional argument that we currently name our America post-racial. The name of our current America is post-racial America. That would be a claim of definition, how to describe current moon. The moon landing happened. Yep, that's a claim of fact. I think most people would agree with it as a fact, but some people don't, so it's still a claim. Prison labor in New York State contributes enormously to the economy. Yes, something contributing to the economy is a claim of fact. We don't have enough money to do X is also a claim of fact, okay? Whether or not Bernie Sanders currently has enough votes to win the primaries is a claim of fact. Dance as a sport would be a claim of definition. All right, now let's move on to claims of definition. So we've already got a couple of examples. Dance as a sport is a claim of definition. We live in a post-racial America is a definition. I guess you could also argue the blue-white dress is a definition. I'm fine with either. Again, these aren't things given in nature. These are rhetorical constructs that help you think about arguments. So sometimes you might have one that fits multiple categories. All right, give me a couple of claims of definition, maybe 2 or 3 more. The ones we've gotten so far are really good. Dance as a sport is a claim of definition. So this is anytime you name something or you categorize something or you classify something. If you ever say something is protected under the First Amendment, that's a definition because you're saying that this thing falls under the First Amendment. Is mayonnaise an instrument? Would be a claim of definition, yes. Physician-assisted death is humane. Holly, that one is a value claim. We'll get to those later. Humane isn't really, again, because the problem with saying that you define something as humane is we don't know the definition of humane. So humane is really, it's like competition. It's very vague. So we would want to tweak that one to be a little bit more assertive. But if you were to say physician-assisted suicide is protected under the Hippocratic Oath, that would be a claim of definition, which many people have argued. Or physician-assisted suicide meets the criteria for medical ethics. That's another argument people have made. And those are both definitional claims. Buffalo has the best wings in the United States. Zach, I think that's a claim of definition. It's a weird one, but I think it works. I could see it also being a claim of fact, but best tends to be more definitional. But that one's funky because, again, I mean, if you were actually arguing someone over that, I would not, a stasis theory would probably not be relevant. I'm vegan, but that's true. Thank you. The purpose of the criminal justice system is to punish. Yes, that is a claim of definition. Right. The reason why the criminal justice system exists is for the purpose of punishment. Its classification is punishment. But of course, someone else could argue with you, right, and say, no, its purpose is to reform, or its purpose is to disinhibit criminal behavior. Its purpose is to keep people, and right, so people could argue other definitions. All right, this is really good. I think we've got some good ones here. So we've got fact, policy, and definition. The last one is claims of value. Claims of value are the kinds, so the ones I've said don't quite fit into a box. These are the claims where we say something represents a certain value, or something has a certain value to us, or something undermines a value. So when we say, if we pay NCAA athletes, that's going to undermine competition. Competition is the value there. So with the value claim, you're always making 2 claims. One, this value is important, or this value is bad. So in this case, competition is good. We want competition in our sports. It's crucial. We want competition in our marketplace. And paying those athletes is going to undermine that value. So there's a value. The one about, what was the other one? There was another one about post-racial America was more of a definitional one. Physician-assisted suicide death is humane, is a value claim. So whether or not you agree with it, it's a humane act. We need more humanity. We need more people to be humane. Physician-assisted suicide is one way to do that. That's your value claim. Holly, the purpose of physician-assisted suicide is to allow terminally ill patients to die in peace. Yes, that would be a definitional claim. What did you say about the athletes? Drew, I said your earlier sentence about competition, that's a value claim. That paying NCAA athletes would undermine competition. It's hard to prove as a fact claim because competition isn't anything you can kind of do. It's an idea. Competition is like a vague idea. So that's how we know it's a value. Any of these words, competition, humane, any of those like big fancy adjectives that have a lot of meanings attached to them, if you're using words like that, you are probably entering into value claim territory. That's the 4th kind of stasis, is value. All right, so here's how this is going to work. So now that you know the 4 kinds of claims, again, I did not need the word so there. Now that you know the 4 kinds of claims, you're going to use something called a stasis slip. I invented this. What it means essentially is I want you to find a claim of fact that your opponent is making that you cannot win. So a claim of fact made by your opponent where you cannot win. Can anybody give me some examples? Here's an example. I go to my department chair and I say, our students are suffering, their grades we don't have enough classes for them, all of which is true. They're demoralized. We're really undermining the value of a public liberal arts education. We need more faculty. So I've got a policy claim, we need to hire more faculty. I've got a fact claim, they can't get into enough classes. I've got a definitional claim, we're supposed to be serving the public good and we're not. Okay? But they're going to come back and just say, we can't hire more faculty. Fact. Right? They have a claim of fact. And that is true. We do not have permission by the SUNY administration of Geneseo to hire any more faculty, even though it's very clear that we need them. And why is that? We have no money. So that's a fact claim. So whenever you encounter a fact claim that beats you, you have to slip into value or definition. Can't slip into policy, because policy is like the big overarching claim. You can counter it with fact. That's another skill set. So if they give you a fact like we don't have enough faculty, you can counter with another fact, which is something like, but look how many students this semester didn't get seats in classes that they need. Or look how many students dropped out because they were frustrated with the course selection at the Geneseo communication major. So that is part of your rebuttal. So your rebuttal is going to have 3 main points. One of those main points is what I call a fact for fact. So your opponents have a fact and you just have a counterfact. That's the easy part. Everybody can do that. You can find facts to support every argument. The second thing is going to be that turning the table. So you take an argument that your opponent made, you find the warrant, and you either manipulate the warrant against them or you counter the warrant. And then the third main point is going to be the thing we're talking about now, which is a Stasis slip. So they give you a fact that you can't win, and you slip to either a counterclaim of definition or a counterclaim of value. So, does anybody want to give me a fact that your opponents have that you can't win? It's just too strong. We don't have enough money. We've always done it. I try to get the Lamron all the time to change how they publish their newspaper. And they always tell me, but this is always how we've done it. That's a fact claim. This is always how it's been done. And it sticks. I can't get around that. So I can't then go, no, it's not always how you've done it, because I don't have that information. So they win that fact claim. So I need a counterclaim to beat that. Athletes can't be paid under NCAA law. Great. That's actually a definition claim, Drew, but I'll give it to you. Yeah, we have a law that NCAA athletes can't be paid. Fine. Like we can't pay them. I think that's fine. It's kind of a combo. Physicians swear in the Hippocratic Oath where physician-assisted suicide violates. So again, Holly, I think you also have a combo of a definition and a factual. That's fine though. I think these are both good. So these are both claims, right? You can't say, no, they didn't swear in the Hippocratic Oath. They did. Good. Abortion is technically what? Abortion is technically what? The U.S. Soccer Federation does not have enough money. Yep, that's a good one, Megan. Good. If I'm talking about young people and plastic surgery, Nicolette, I'm not sure what the other part of that sentence is. Abortion is technically killing a human. That is not a claim of fact. That is their definitional claim. It is a very good definitional claim. It gets them a lot of support, pro-life, that's just the term I use. I know not everyone who supports abortion considers themselves pro-life, but that's the term I'm going to use just to make it easy. That's actually a very strong claim of definition, but you can just argue an alternate definition. So that one's not really a claim of fact because you can beat that one. You just have to have a counterclaim of definition. Due to the lightning, we cannot continue the lacrosse game. Yeah, that would be a fact. The lightning is dangerous. We have to stop. Sure. Oh, yeah, Nicolette, I know you weren't done. Go ahead and finish it when you're ready. Just type the whole thing out and then send it to me. Declawing cats is painful amputation surgery. Tessa, again, I would say that is a claim of definition, not a really, really convincing claim of fact. Aren't they under anesthesia when they're declawed? So doesn't that, is the painful a fact, or is that just what people say to get a win? NCAA athletes can't be paid because the NCAA says they don't make enough money. Good, that's a good one. Common Core students are able to use multiple methods to solve the same problem. Yeah, Emily, I think that's right. We need Common Core because it exposes people to all different kinds of things. So then when you say get rid of it, they're like, nope, because then people are going to be like pigeonholed. I think that one's good. I think that's a hard one to get around. There has been an increase in food allergies and autoimmune disorders. Sarah, I don't know what the other half of that is, like the so what, but yes, if your opponent is saying something has to happen or not happen because of the increase in allergies, and that's pretty well known, that's very well established, that is a claim of fact that it's going to be hard to get around. Our opponents are based off of who we talked about in our Turn the Tables, correct? Yeah, Abby, yes. And you can have multiple opponents representing the same viewpoint. So if you're making a case against pro-life, for example, you can have like a spokesperson for a certain organization. You can have just like Tim Tebow's mom is always campaigning about how if she'd aborted Tim Tebow, we wouldn't have him now. And it's pretty effective. So you can have multiple voices representing that camp, but just try to focus on one per main point. So you're looking at the same general argument, but you're looking at multiple people saying it in different ways so that you're getting a real like well-rounded argument. All right. So now everybody think about how would you challenge that? So now that you've presented me with an argument, sometimes fact, sometimes definition for most of you, that's really hard to get around. How could you use a counter value or definition claim to beat it? And for some of you, you've already clearly labeled it, right? If Emily Haber is having trouble because the people who defend Common Core defend this multidisciplinary attitude, she needs to either change the definition of interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary or whatever, offer an alternate definition. For example, when someone says to me, oh, well, we have to take our gen eds because they learn to solve from multiple perspectives, I say, well, if they hate their gen eds and there are too many, because I don't know if you know this, but SUNY Geneseo requires twice the number of gen ed courses that other SUNY schools do. And many people have complained about this, myself included. Here's why. I value an interdisciplinary education. I do. I think that everyone needs to learn how to speak in multiple disciplinary languages. The problem is that the system we have is not doing that. It's exposing students to multiple disciplines, but that's not teaching them how to think or appreciate or integrate multiple disciplines. It would be better if they were really good at making connections among one humanities and one social science than making connections across 9 disciplines, because when you expand the number of disciplines, you no longer get interdisciplinary. You get confusion. So I use a counter definitional claim, right? They're defining Common Core as interdisciplinary. It's not interdisciplinary. It exposes people to different disciplines, but people don't learn how to integrate that work because there are too many gen eds and not enough focus on integrating them. That's why we should have fewer gen eds and more work on teaching people to integrate their gen eds through things like team teaching, reflection portfolios, closer advisement, active learning project. Those are ways you can do interdisciplinary. So you see what happens? People are like, oh, but interdisciplinary. You have to change the definition and show them that their definition of interdisciplinary, in fact, isn't the one they think they have. So that's a way to use the definition to counter the opposition. Jack already has an answer. If NCAA athletes can't be paid because, quote, we don't have enough money, use a bigger value than money. Because I'll tell you, there's always money. It's NCAA. They'll figure out money. You have to show them that there's a bigger value than money that's ultimately going to threaten the money. Yeah, you have enough money now, but at the rate we keep going, what is suffering in the way the current structure is working that's going to have a long-term negative impact on the reputation and the enjoyment of fans that's then going to undermine the money? Tessa, same thing with declawing the cats as painful. If you wanted to defeat that claim, you would need to argue that there's a better value than pain. I mean, spaying and neutering cats is painful also, but there's a greater good. So with the value claims, you're kind of looking at what the You're kind of looking at what the opponent is saying has to happen, and then you're showing them that, but there's a greater good or evil here that you're contributing to with this claim. All right. Nicolette, did you ever finish yours? I'm looking to see if Nicolette ever finished. Nicolette. Yeah, Nicolette, I don't think you finished your thing about young people and plastic surgery. Why don't you hop back in and let me know? The Hippocratic Oath is not legally binding and therefore should not be seen as the medical bylaws. Yeah. I think that's fine. I think that's good. That's good, Holly. It's an argument of definition, right? People are saying like, oh, this is the Hippocratic Oath, and you're like, no, that's not a legal category. You're redefining their defining. So they're trying to define the physician-assisted suicide as against the Hippocratic Oath, and you're saying, yeah, but the Hippocratic Oath is already not legal. An even better way to do that, though, would be to show how the Hippocratic Oath, in fact, can already be so hit them from both angles. One, the Hippocratic Oath is, in fact, compatible with physician-assisted suicide because you have to really work that do no harm clause. Right, it's the same thing with TESA. The do no harm clause is where your work is. And then also say, by the way, even if you want to, it's not a legally binding category, and so physician-assisted suicide shouldn't be part of medical ethics, or medical, like, legal guidelines. I think that one's really good. The Hippocratic Oath has been viewed as outdated and fails to address modern medicine. Okay, I think that's fine. That's a value, right? That's the value of modernity. When you say something is outdated, you're making a value claim. This is, the Lamron's way of doing business, Becca, is outdated. You see what I mean? That's a value claim. You're going to save the video so we can look back at this, right? Emily, I'm going to do my damnedest. I have tried to download these videos on multiple occasions and they have not worked, but fingers crossed it'll work this time. If not, the mini speeches all have very detailed instructions. So if you open up the next mini speech, which is mini speech 6, there is a layout of stasis theory, an explanation of how to do a stasis slip, and then an example. So you do have materials to work with that are not just these recordings, but I'm going to try, as soon as I stop this live, I'm going to hit the download button. So we'll see. It doesn't download the comments, but it will download everything else. But so far I have not had luck. We may need to switch to a different platform if I can't figure out what's going on. The women want equal pay, whether that means giving them more money or decreasing the men's, or just the bottom line is just to make them equal. Okay, Megan, so that's a very long way to just say, fuck money, equality matters. So get to your point. Yeah, I get it. You don't think you have enough money, but you need to find the money because equality is important. And then you need to show them that equality is important. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a society where gender equality has not been important. So that's where your rhetorical skills come in, is how are you going to make equality for the two teams important? All right. Fewer children have died of communicable since the invention of vaccines. So that is a very convincing claim of fact. If you're trying to work around that, you're going to need a workaround, Sarah. Does the first one work any better? Holly, they're two different arguments. I would do both of them. I would do one as your warrant, right? The Hippocratic Oath, we need to abide by the Hippocratic Oath. Physician-assisted suicide is illegal because Hippocratic Oath. The warrant is that the Hippocratic Oath is legally binding, and you're saying it's not. So that's your turning the tables. That one's really easy. That one's obvious. And then the one about something about being outdated and not modern, that's your stasis slip. They're saying that the Hippocratic Oath governs, right, their fact and their definition. It governs the medical decisions made by physicians in the United States, and you're going to go, well, I don't care if it does or not. It's an outdated concept. It's the same argument people who want the Second Amendment reformed will argue, which is that the Second Amendment was written in a time when things were very different. And we amend the Constitution all the time, so why not amend it to ban assault rifles, for example? Not shotguns. Nobody gives a shit about shotguns. But to ban assault rifles. All right. We are getting way ahead of me. So nobody, give me a second. Don't write any more comments. I think I answered everyone's. Becca. Nicolette, certain procedures would negatively affect the growth and development of adolescents. Nicolette, I think you mean plastic surgery procedures of adolescents. I think that's true. I'm not sure if you're arguing against regulations for plastic surgery or what. Do you want to come up on screen and be coached? That might be easier for you. If you want to get coached, put a note in the comments or raise your hand or something, and I'll call you up on screen, because maybe coaching you on this would be easier than trying to keep revising these statements. Abby, the FDA ensures your food from animals is safe even though they pump them with drugs and antibiotics, but they don't do this to treat disease. So is that kind of like a safety comes at a cost kind of thing? I think that's a good value claim. Oh, well, we do this to keep people safe. Yeah, but not safe from the right things kind of deal. Or it wouldn't be necessary for the FDA to ensure food safety if we did things differently. I mean, I think I see some potential there. Again, I might want to coach you on that because I'm not exactly sure what it is you're getting at. Even though prisons are dangerous, using funds to increase prisoner minimum wage will do more good than bad. So Leah, I would need more specifics on more good than bad. And also I'm not sure what minimum wage has to, I would take out the part about prisons are dangerous. I would just say, my opponent says we can't increase prisoner minimum wage because what? But in fact, increasing the wage will do more, what's the good, than whatever they said the bad would be. So get more specific. Do more good than bad is very vague. That's multiple claims. I need the specific good it's going to do that's going to defeat any potential consequence. And I can give you an example. So I used to teach public speaking in prisons in Georgia back when they still did this kind of thing, before they decided that they were only going to let like benign programs in. And what would happen is, after a couple of times of rhetorical training, you'd see initial violence in the prisons spike as prisoners got more used to arguing, got more literate, got better at using their voices. But in programs that were allowed to stay in the prison over time, not too much time, but maybe 6 months, as the prisoners got an outlet and were able to debate other prisoners and were able to like write op-ed pieces, and we did a bunch of really empowering stuff to get them educated and get their voices out there about what was going on. And they were writing about all kinds of stuff, domestic violence, police interaction. I mean, whatever they wanted to talk about, they got to talk about, and we would find an outlet for them. You'd see the violence levels fall to their initial rates, so they'd be back where they were, and then they decrease because you'd give them something else to do with all of that negative energy and pain besides start fights with other people. Now, it didn't eliminate violence, but there was a definite improvement over time. But of course, people always cut off the program after that initial spike in violence, so you don't get to see the long term. So that's doing more harm than doing more good than bad. But you see how very specific it is? If allowed to flow, the program would have brought the rates of physical violence down to before their prior levels, but you have to allow that initial bad to happen to get the long-term good. But I don't just say, oh, teaching public speaking in prisons does more good than harm, because that's vague. People can't wrap their head around that. All right. I can't. Okay, that's fine. Maybe try to type your full argument out in the comments then, and I'll try to address it. Oh, here we go. Plastic surgery is like skin transplants, and surgical reconstruction, like breast augmentation and lip injections, are actually cosmetic surgery. And you're saying cosmetic surgery does harm to adolescents? Are you arguing that it does harm, or you're saying other people argue it does harm, but I want adolescents to get plastic surgery? And then I'll take anybody that wants to get coached on this, because I'm pretty much done talking at this point. So if anybody wants to pop up and chat about their particular argument, we will do that. If nobody wants to get coached, then I'm done for the day. Nicolette, you should really hop on here. I know you don't want to, but... And the reason, Nicolette, I'm kind of confused by what you're writing is because the FDA already regulates plastic surgery among adolescents. So the FDA already prohibits non-medically necessary cosmetic and reconstructive surgery from being administered to patients under the age of 18. Now, there are certainly shitty doctors who still will do it. And also, if you have parental consent, you can do anything in this country, including like marry off your 14-year-old kid to a 90-year-old man. But we can't, but the law is already the law. So you can't make a speech that's like, I don't think parents should let their kids get reconstructive surgery, because that's not really action that applies to everyone. That's just you angry at parents. And that's not really, there's no action. There's no like collective action for everyone because we've already agreed as a collective society. Now you could argue that the FDA should remove the parental control option. So no surgery for, no non-medically necessary surgery for anyone under the age of 18 at all for cosmetic purposes. But then you have to take on the whole tradition in America of allowing the family to supersede the government. So if a parent thinks that a child at 14 should be allowed to get their ears pierced, then the fact that the federal age is 18 is void, right? So you have to have an answer to why it is that families should be allowed to have their right to choose taken away by the government, which is really against American traditions. That makes the speech a lot harder if you're trying to argue to remove the parental restriction. We only have to pick one of 4 types of claims. Victoria, there only really are 4. I've never come up with, if you can combine them and get like a 5th kind, but generally speaking in your speech, you already have a claim of policy because that's your thesis. So overall, the argument that you're making is a policy-based argument. You need to have the opponent's claim of fact that you're going to beat with an alternate claim of fact. You need to have the opponent's full argument that you're going to defeat via the warrant. And then you need to have another claim by the opponent. It can be whatever you want, like a definition or a fact usually, that you're going to defeat with a definition or a value. Look at the template for the rebuttal speech. This is all laid out. So if you open the template for the rebuttal speech that you were assigned to read, there's like a video that goes with it. I mean, there's a whole layout of this. If you haven't looked at those materials, then this is going to be very confusing. So I would go back and look at those materials. Where online, Becca? The notes are published online in the modules. So Becca, thanks for publishing the notes. Will you just copy and paste the link and shoot it out as a quick Slack? So the argument I'm against is that plastic surgery should be illegal for people under 18. Okay, and so your opponents say because it stunts adolescent development, that's a fact, and you need to defeat that. Okay, I think that sounds fine. That's a very strong fact. I'm interested to see how you defeat that because as far as I knew, things like surgical reconstruction at like age 15 are like mess up your hormones. The notes are published online, so thanks, Becca. I think I'm confused on where I should place and classify these statements and that I commented through the Insta. I think I'm confused on where I should place and classify these statements. So Holly, you already did the turning the tables. So you're going to revise that based on feedback, and that's going to become one of your main points in the upcoming speech. I don't care if it's first, second, or third. Just pick one. Then you're going to do a Stasis slip. That's the one we're working on now that's due tomorrow. That's going to be another main point in the big speech. Then your third main point, whether it's your first, second, or third, but the final of the 3 that you put in there is just going to be a fact for fact. They say X is true or not true. I say the opposite. They say we don't have the money. I say we do have the money. Let's use Brandon's example. They say we shouldn't use a foreign language because people already speak English. I argue we need foreign languages for business. That's the easy. I'm giving you basically one easy main point. One really simple. They say something is true or not true or does or does not work, and I'm just going to say the opposite or a counterclaim. This is the kind of stuff we always do in arguments. So you get one of those main points. I'm not teaching that because that's easy. But then your other 2 main points are going to be the 2 mini speeches put into the full framework, and then you're going to add your introduction and your conclusion, revise the whole thing so it makes sense, and then that's your speech. It's on Canvas under modules under the notes. Oh, it's in the notes section. Okay, it's in the notes section of the Canvas module called notes. Remember, it's where I used to put the daily lecture notes. That makes sense. That's a good place to put it. What about Stasis? Victoria, I don't know what you're asking. What about Stasis? The Stasis slip is one main point. You have 3 main points for the speech. Turning the tables 5, the one you just did, is one main point. The Stasis slip that we're learning today is going to be another main point. And the fact for fact is going to be the 3rd main point. I'm having you turn in essentially 2 main points as mini speeches. You mentioned my Stasis slip. Yeah, it could be, sure. Because outdated is a value, right? The modernity, being up to date, being relevant, being current, those are values. So if something is outdated, it has a bad value. That's what we mean when we say something's outdated. It means it has the value that is not my value, which is being new, being current. Do you have examples of people performing their speeches like we had for the self-intro? Yeah, Leah, there's one in the sample folder. There's only one though. Do you want more than one? Because I don't have more than one, but there is one. It was assigned for as part of the prep work to watch it. It was Sam's. But this assignment's relatively new, so I don't really have as many examples as I'd like, but I have one. And also there are examples of the mini speeches in the mini speech assignment. Okay, so nobody's raised their hand to get coached, so I'm gonna call it. Is that good? Nobody seems to want to talk about it on camera. And I could keep answering questions, but it sounds like the questions are just like, where do I find the sample speeches? So I would go back and look at, where's your, oh, Justin Bieber postponed his tour due to coronavirus. Thanks, news. Didn't need that freaking update. All right, good. Okay, everybody's good. I didn't see it in Canvas. Okay, good, Leah. All right, cool. I'm gonna call it. I will try to download this, and if I do, I will post it. And if not, then I will revid it. And remember, we're going to complete incomplete on those mini speeches. So thanks everyone for coming. We'll look for your next mini speech tomorrow, and I will finish feedback on the other ones today and update the grading. Okay, bye.